Welcome back to the Sports Business Take Podcast, your home for sports industry news with a little personality. I'm Paul Hine. He is Zach Creekmore. And today we are joined by Daniel Goldberg, a marketing analyst for the Texas Rangers. Thank you so much for joining us today, Daniel. Can you explain to our audience a little bit what you do with the Rangers, what kind of your role is and your responsibilities are?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys. Really excited to be here. Yeah, I'm the marketing analyst for the 2023 World Series champion Texas Rangers.
Love it.
Um, my day to day, what it looks like is I analyze all of our marketing campaigns. That could be email, text message campaigns, any ticketing campaigns, anything that I can do to help create value to our organization so that we can bring more people in, fill up the stands, and really create a great atmosphere at our ballpark.
That's awesome. I'm sure it was a great atmosphere when you guys won the World Series this year.
It
That
was,
must
I'll
have
tell
been
you.
that must have been one of the
I,
most incredible moments.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been to a lot of sporting events, but nothing will ever beat Game 5 of the World Series. Game 1 was pretty close, though. Seager tying it up, and then Garcia go and walk off. So those two
I'm
games
sure.
will be a memory forever.
Yeah, and you'll have plenty of marketing material from all of that, I'm sure. The first thing I wanted to ask you was, where did your inspiration to work in sports come from?
It's a great question. Ever since I was young, always wanted to do something in sports. Didn't know what that was. Didn't know what working in sports entailed. But I'll tell you guys, my biggest two passions in life growing up were sports and math. And combining those two, I figured out that there was sports analytics out there, right? Loved looking at box scores growing up, seeing, how the outcome of the game was affected by different players, and quickly realized that, sports are a business just like any other business. They need people to come in and analyze data to create what is the atmosphere. So combining those two passions for sports and math, you know, there couldn't have been a better route for me than sports analytics.
Really awesome that you found your niche within sports, and that's a very interesting niche that I don't think a lot of people really know about. I don't think a lot of people really realize how much data analytics plays into what they see on the field and off the field for their favorite sports teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to touch on that a little, everybody thinks that baseball is an analytical sport from the standpoint of player performance, but just as much goes into it on the business side. We have people buying tickets coming into our ballpark 81 times a year. We're getting all of their data on their purchasing behaviors, whether that's for tickets, concessions, merchandise. My job is to analyze all of that to create maximize revenue.
I love what you had to say. You're good. About data analytics. It truly is when we've seen sports in the last couple of years, whether it's the Premier League, soccer, clubs like Brentford, Southampton, etc., or baseball, where we really think it started with Moneyball and all that stuff, thinking on the sporting end, but also in the business end, it is truly where our businesses are growing and going. So it is revolutionary, realistically. So love the work that you're doing. I've done a little bit of analytics work myself and looked into it, and I don't have the math brain for it, so I truly respect you and what you do. It takes a lot, and it is super challenging. I did a little bit of research into you and your LinkedIn account. I know you saw me connect with you earlier, but I watched that video that you have and just reposted probably a couple months back, but describing the Texas Rangers as a customer company, which I think is a super powerful statement and really ties into the real reason why we do analytics. What is that why for the business, but also for you, right? So my question is, by using data analytics in all capacities at the Rangers, your team and the organization has set out to be a customer company. Can you share what that identity and mission means? And secondly, how does this impact your role, how you work, and your thought processes in what that is?
Well, first of all, I commend you for doing that research and watching that video and forming such a great question. So props to you there. Yeah, so that video was put together by Salesforce. We were spotlighted. The Texas Rangers were spotlighted by Salesforce at one of the biggest tech companies in the nation, showing how we use their product to create the best fan experience. What that best fan experience looks like is from the minute someone buys a ticket to the end of the game, we want to cover all of our boundaries and make sure that everybody is, we fulfill the highest of standards, whether that's parking, whether that's, easy access into the stadium with scanning tickets, having all of our guest service members, with a smile on their face, going above and beyond to making sure that everybody's needs are accounted for. So how does that work? Well, from an analytics perspective, there's really, as a business analytics team, we touch every department within the organization. We touch the basics, as I'll say, marketing and ticketing and sponsorships, but we also do work for guest services and our youth academy and, HR. The guest services representatives are continuously giving us data on how they thought the night went. We can compare that to surveys that fans give us, after attending a game, and really focus on where the pinpoints are that we need to really focus on. That's surveying is such a huge and crucial part of what we do. And we have tons and tons of surveys that go out depending on an action that you take, whether that's a way that you bought a ticket, after you attend a game, all of that stuff. So we're continuously gathering data to use it to create a better environment.
That's super interesting to hear about how the data does create that better environment. I worked in minor league baseball last summer, so I totally understand trying to create the best fan experience that you can possible, and that's part of what you do in the customer service world. So it's interesting to hear about how you help them out from a data analytics side of how can we make our customer service the best it can possibly be. In terms of strategy, I wanted to ask you, what is one marketing strategy that has been effective in your time at the Rangers? And what is one strategy the Rangers are going to use in 2024 or looking to use?
Yeah. Well, coming off of the World Series, everybody has an assumption that, it's easier to sell tickets. More people want to come. Well, you're right, Zach. You're shaking your head. Expectations are through the roof right now. Tickets skyrocketed in prices. We understand that somebody who came to 4 or 5 games last year might only have the money to come to 1 or 2 games this year because of a price increase. So how do we get that fan back? Different marketing strategies. We're big on social media. We're big in paid advertisements. Anywhere that we can connect to the customer and really share what a great feeling it is and how fun it is to go to a baseball game. We want to do that. Another thing that I help with is working with the demographic data. So, 2 college students coming to a game might purchase from social media, but a family of 4, might see it from an email. So understanding where different people are consuming that information and then ultimately making that decision and conducting that behavior to buy a ticket. But the World Series effect is definitely something that my team is going to measure this year. How much of our increase in revenue is going to be based off of us winning the World Series. And there's a lot of factors that go into that.
Yeah, I'm sure there are. It's going to be a really interesting time at the Rangers, it seems like.
Absolutely. And thinking about it, ticket sales specifically is such a duality of a problem where you're looking at one situation where your pricing goes up, but now there's actually less people who can get in the stadium, so maybe you break even or make a slight profit. So it is really challenging to look at, right? It's an economic issue, and analytics is a huge part of that. So kind of continuing in that type of thought process, maybe in a different vein, but giving you a little bit of a situational, hypothetical per se. If you were to join an organization that is currently lacking in analytics or data collection or translation team, what information would you start with? And what areas of the business would you focus on first?
Hell of a question. First of all, I'll tell you, the Rangers are I'm coming up on my 1 year anniversary there, and I've been with.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I've been with the good first season to start with. Um, I've been with the Washington Commanders for 2 seasons, Redskins when I was there, and I've been with the Cleveland Browns, and you know, all three organizations do a fabulous job of utilizing analytics. You know, I forget which one of you said it earlier, but analytics is kind of, the future of decision making. Our job as analysts is to analyze the data and pass it on to the decision maker, right? We're not the decision makers. We want to provide as much input and understanding into a problem for the decision maker, the higher up, to make the decision. Whether they use the information we provide them or not, that's up to them, right? But all three organizations that I've been to, it's great to see that they value it and really look into what we're saying. In terms of where you start, high level, you got to start with the ticketing data, and understand really who's buying what and for how much. That will lead you down the path of figuring out all the economics behind the ticketing, and then really into, that'll funnel into the marketing. Once you have that core set of fans and you know who's buying what, then you can market to those certain sections and clusters of people. So obviously ticketing and marketing, are the best. Another department that, people overlook in terms of analytics is partnerships. We have analysts that solely look at partnership data and say, how can we leverage the analytics to bring on new partners? I'll give you just a random example. Are you guys familiar with Whataburger?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Food chain down here in Texas. And they weren't partners with us forever, but they just started becoming a partner. And we realized through surveying that our fans are more likely to go to Whataburger than to McDonald's, Burger King, etc. So we want to connect with our fans and bring in a product that they like. So doing the research and everything, we understood what our customers like, and we can flip that and turn it into money, the partnership.
I love that. That's super interesting to hear about how you took a more of a regional food chain. We don't have those up here, so I'm assuming it's regional. And
Yeah.
took it and used it to your advantage. It really, what you were just talking about reminds me of the word demographics. You guys are looking at who's buying what and, in what age groups, in what level of income and all those type of things. So super interesting to hear about how the demographics play out for the Rangers. Kind of tying into Zach's last question, I want to ask, what do you think is the most important piece of data as an analyst? Like if you could pick out one stat as a marketing analyst, what would it be?
I would definitely go, if I could choose one area, it would definitely be demographics. If I had to choose one demographic, and demographics include, I'm sure you guys know, but just to list them: age, gender, household income, marital status, distance from the stadium, location. The list goes on and on. Age, you got to know who is purchasing what products. And, if you don't know household income of somebody, but their age, you can assume, okay, they're younger, they might not have much money. They're older, they might have a little more money to spend. So we do a lot of grouping in terms of age.
Do you think that really affects the decisions that go into how you guys price your products and what offerings you give to fans? Is age demographics?
Pricing, not so much. Now, when we market different ticketing campaigns, we have full season ticket plans, we have half season ticket plans, we have a 20 game package, and we have a Tex Flex, which is a 10 game pick your games. Age group, someone who's retired, older, will be a better candidate for all 81 games or a half season plan rather than a 20-year-old, like ourselves, will be more inclined to purchase that TextFlex 10 game plan.
So would you say you're targeting an older audience, or what age group are you targeting, do you think?
Yeah, it all depends on what product we're trying to sell at the time. We don't want to specifically limit it to a certain audience. We want it to be
Right.
inclusive of everybody.
Of course.
And we have ticketing reps who are professionals in selling certain products, right? We have our groups department and we have our premium department, and match those groups up with the demographics. They're better at selling certain products. But at the end of the day, we want it to be, everybody who wants to come watch a Rangers game can.
Of course, the more fans you can get in seats, the better, right?
Yep.
Absolutely. And I think you're on the right path. Like age demographics, in terms of demographics as a whole, is probably the most powerful thing that you can make, going back to the partnerships, right? Where you're deciding who you partner with, what you partner. The thing between an 80-year-old person and a 20-year-old person, where their interests are totally different, right? Whataburger's a type of company where that age span is totally shared by everybody in the community, right? So it's something that you can partner and say, this identifies with our brand goal of being a consumer company or a customer company, because we're partnering with somebody who mentally connects with partners of all ages. So I like that vision.
And to that, just a funny story. We had a college baseball tournament last weekend, or maybe it was a couple weekends ago now. And where that Whataburger, we're putting the actual Whataburger in the stadium too, the restaurant. And I'm gonna be there every game. Trust me. There was where it's going. There was a huge sign that said Whataburger coming soon, and nothing had been released to the public. But we had this college baseball event, and fans were coming in and they were seeing it, and someone took a picture of it and posted it on Twitter, and it blew up. They're like, Rangers are getting a Whataburger? What? And the younger demographic on social media just went crazy about it.
I'm sure. That's really awesome to hear about something that translated all the way through the channels, right? It translated from your marketing to your socials to your fans, and then kind of made it full circle. So I want to go back real quick. You were talking about your experience with the Cleveland Browns. I wanted to know, how did that job differ from your current one, and what skills did you take from your roles with the Browns and the Commanders that you currently brought into your marketing analyst job at the Rangers?
Yeah, that's a great question. The main difference between business analytics in football and business analytics in baseball is the amount of data, right? Like I said, in the NFL, you have 10 home games. You have 8 or 9 regular season, 1 or 2 preseason. That means 10 times people are buying tickets. They're coming into the stadium. They're buying concessions, merchandise, you name it. In baseball, you have 81 home games, right? 8 more times you're getting people's, data on purchasing behavior, parking, gate ingress, concessions, merchandise, guest services, everything. So, it's a lot easier to work with the data, and it's easier to implement new changes once we have that. When the Browns were playing, we could have 2 weeks away and then a home game, and then 2 more weeks until another home game, or just have one the next weekend. And when you're looking at trying to analyze the data, it's hard. You can come up with, we need to do this because it's going to help our fans and their experience. Well, you don't have a time in a week to turn that around. In baseball, if you have a 3-series homestand that goes 8 or 9 days, you can analyze how you're performing throughout those 8 or 9 days straight. Again, the same amount of data you're going to get for the whole season in the NFL. And when the team goes on the road, implement them into the ballpark. So just, as a statistician, the more data you have, the better conclusions and correlations you can find and implement.
Really interesting to hear about the difference between those two, and how it's easier in baseball. I would actually think, because you have more data to look at from more games, that it would be harder, but it's interesting to hear about that. So thank you.
Yeah. And just to touch on that, the more data you have, the better you can see what's going on. And then as
Yeah.
another game happens and you see that same trend happening, you're like, okay, the
It's
data's telling me
confirmation.
something. Yeah.
Hmm. That makes total
Absolutely. I
sense.
I was thinking that purely to the fact of the likelihood that you're acting on an outlier is made so much fewer because there's so much more data, and I think it directly
Great point.
correlates with a clear indication that the MLB is a statistics leader or an analytics leader for what is the U.S. sports because probably
They
they have
do
the
have the longest
greatest amount
season.
of games, right?
Yeah.
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 So
Longest
it's
season.
absolutely huge, and I love to hear about that because really the fact is, and this kind of ties into we talk about sports business and what you're doing in a professional sense so much. Even in a sporting sense, the more reps you get, the more data you get, the more you learn, the more powerful it becomes, and how powerful of a statement that is, even from beyond a business context to yourself. So thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Continuing, you recently shared some research you did into generative AI. We've talked about AI a lot on the podcast, but could you share your insights into the role of AI, the role it will play and has played into your career so far, and where do you see AI taking the world of sports information, analytics, and marketing?
Whew, what a topic! What a topic! Yeah, so a couple colleagues and I, we wrote a paper on generative AI and the impacts that it's having and where we think it's going. And it's an incredible technology that is going to change not only the world of sports but the world as a whole. Hopefully for the good. Now, from a sports perspective and what we can do to utilize AI is utilize all the platforms that are out there right now, right? ChatGPT, there's different chatbots that can, assist people. There's different things that we can implement in our stadium that we can be hands off and more hands on in areas that we need to be, where this technology is just going full force and, doing its thing. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the just walk out technologies that have been implemented in some stadiums, but they're concession stands that are fully operated by you put your credit card down
Yes.
and then you just walk around the store, grab whatever you want, and walk out. And your
Wow.
credit card charges you. Yeah, look it up. It's
Wow.
incredible. Well,
You
that
guys have
enables us.
implemented that?
We do have we had one stand last year. We're going to do another one this year, so we'll have two
Wow.
total. Um, but just having that technology, not only does it make it so we can staff accordingly in other places that need it,
Hmm.
but it's a better experience for our fans, right? They
Yeah.
can
Less
go in
time.
less time. They can go in, grab whatever they want. There's no, here's my card, wait for it to scan, get it back, thank you, and head
Yeah.
back.
As someone who's
Um,
worked at a register at a merchandise place in a stadium, yeah, I can definitely say that would make it way easier, the transactions. You wouldn't even need people at the registers. You would just have an automatic register essentially.
yep. We just have a couple people there for alcohol sales because
Right.
you gotta make sure you check an ID there.
Of course.
Uh, um, yeah, but no, AI, we use it to find leads for, businesses to partner with us. Simple searches. And, the implementation, it's just going to get better and better as the technology grows.
I actually had no idea about the merchandise implications of that too. It would make merchandise purchasing for fans so much easier. The last main question that I have is in your opinion, what is the most important skill to take into marketing analytics?
Yeah. Well, don't think I can narrow it down to just one, but in
A top
data
three is
analytics,
fine.
three is perfect because I'm giving you a three-step process that I love to tell
Awesome.
people. So I call it the CMCs of data analytics. The first C being data collection, right? You need to be able to collect the data, right? You need to be able to, you know, access it, gain it, and bring it into a place where you can work with it. Then the next step is M, is manipulating the data, right? Really diving into it, making different tweaks to it and, formulating it into a way that you can analyze it and pull out results, right? So you've collected the data, you've manipulated the data, and you have your findings. So the last C is communication, which is probably the most important one of the three. Because if you can't communicate your findings, then there's no point of collecting and manipulating. If you collect your findings, manipulate them, and communicate them to a higher up in a persuasive, argumentative way, then that you're really creating value there. You're saying, this is what the data is telling us. This is how we should use it. Here you go. Right. It
How
goes
is the
back.
data going to help the business?
Right. So when you collect, you manipulate, and you communicate, you've done your job as an analyst. Like we were talking about earlier, now it's up to the higher up to make the decision.
Very, very powerful statement. I love the CMCs and well said. I appreciate your three.
Not Christian McCaffrey, CMC. Yeah.
No. I appreciate it because in coaching, I coach a little bit myself. I use a term called the toolbox, right?
Mm-hmm.
CMC, when you're working in data analytics, that's your toolbox. Those are the things that you're going to day to day that you're going to say, this is me. This is how I effectively communicate and execute my job and my role. And this is how I'm going to do it. And these are the tools that I can use. So super powerful. And I love that for you. And for anybody looking to work in marketing and data analytics, or realistically in any type of role where you're really collecting data or collecting information, manipulating and translating it, and then communicating it to those that you work with. My question for you would be, what is your biggest piece of advice to a young person like myself or Paul, or similarly, I know you're relatively new into your role at the Rangers. You're quite close to our age. I don't know how close, but I'm just throwing it out there. You said you're in your 20s, so still young in your career. What would be your biggest advice to young people seeking to work in sports or seeking to work in data analytics?
Yeah, two separate questions. I'll answer both of them. Sports as a whole is just get involved. You guys are doing a great job right now of, taking it upon yourselves to do what you love, learn while you're doing it. Internships, those are the best ways to learn. I did 2 internships with the Washington Commanders and didn't make a penny. It was all just for college credit. It was 2 years, and that's really what separated me from other candidates when it came to a full-time job. I went to Purdue, and take us in March Madness. We're not flopping this year. If we do, you can come back to me.
I love
it.
I'll fill out my bracket tomorrow.
Okay. I did a 4-year internship with Purdue Athletics. Started working in women's volleyball. That was my sport. Worked my way up to baseball, basketball, football. Ended up working for 11 of our sporting teams there throughout my 4 years. That paid, it didn't pay well, but, just getting out there, getting in the reps, and, learning from the full-time staff is so beneficial. So just doing, just doing it, and putting yourself out there, not being afraid to reach out to people. Paul, you do an amazing job of that, just, reaching out on LinkedIn. Zach, I'm sure you do the same, but yeah, that's for sports. For analytics, it's different. If you want to get into analytics, there's a couple different ways. First of all, don't think you have to work in sports to land a sports job, okay? Like, you can work for any company, but as long as you can prove that you can do the skill required, a sports team will look at you just like any other candidate, right? If I was analyzing data for, I don't know, I just looked up and saw AT&T. If I was, analyzing data for AT&T and doing a fantastic job, I can do the same thing in sports. It's just different data, right? Same process. And there's a lot of jobs that are like that. Sales. If you're selling cars and you're good at it and you want to work in sales and sports, you have that, skill. So I think it's a big misconception that you have to be in sports to continue to get sports careers. For data analytics, computer science is obviously huge. Keeping up with the trends right now, like we were talking about, AI is just getting better and better. So, continuing to learn on how the most recent advancements can affect an industry are the stepping stones to, an analytics career.
Wow. I mean, that is really interesting to hear about how the path to get into sports is not always a traditional path, that you don't have to work in sports to be in sports. What skills can you take from other parts of your life or other jobs that you've worked and apply them to sports? And it really speaks to trying to be a well-rounded person, a well-rounded candidate when you're looking for jobs. I think both of us are attempting to do that. I hope we end up there someday. I wanted to ask you, we asked the same question of all of our guests as closing question. If you could go back to one moment or one event in sports history and work for that team, what event would it be and why?
Man, I wish you asked me this earlier so I could think about it. I mean, the 23 Rangers are hard to beat.
That can be the moment. That can be the moment. I was kind of expecting that might be your answer.
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is the 85 Bears and just working for an undefeated team. That success just seems crazy to me in a year time span. For a fun standpoint, I think working for USA Olympic basketball.
Wow. Okay.
Just dominant performance after dominant performance.
I like that. Something a little different with the Olympics. I like that.
Yeah. Curious to know, what do some other people say?
Some people have said their childhood teams growing up. Zach, can you think of some specific ones?
The most recent one I think of, and I'm the last guest we had on the podcast, and I apologize, I'm horrible with names. And
Eric Bechtel.
Thank you, Eric Bechtel. Mr. Bechtel, I apologize. But he had mentioned when he went and he was representing the San Francisco 49ers quarterback.
Yes, Steve Young.
Steve Young, when they went.
He had lived his already.
And that was his lived dream of he wanted to be a football player. He wanted to go to the Super Bowl. He wanted to win it. And he was able, through representing Steve Young, to live that and really be a part of all of that process, where Steve was MVP, threw the 6 touchdowns, won it all, and made that huge impact. And for him working as a partnership and marketing representative, so ties into a little bit of our conversation for today, was able to do that. And it was, for him, that was his dream, and it really connected. And I think it's a really hard question, especially for myself.
It is a really hard question.
I couldn't go and pick one moment that I would want to be a part of.
I could. I know my answer.
Paul's like, Paul, I know mine.
I would do the David Ortiz homer where Torrey Hunter went over the wall and the cop was going crazy for that 2013 Red Sox ALCS. I'm from Massachusetts, so that would be my moment. That was the first World Series I really remember.
Okay, yeah. I didn't realize, I guess, I was picking a team. If it was a moment, it would be Corey Seager's home run in Game 1 of the World Series.
So you lived yours already.
I wish I hadn't yet. And I
no,
hope
that's okay. It doesn't have to be a peak. There can be more to come.
But let me tell you, everybody says that the most heroic part of our World Series run was Garcia hitting the walk-off home run in Game 1. Seager's home run is better. The game-tying home run in the
I like that take.
Okay? We're down 5-3 with 2 outs to go. Down 2 with a man on, and Seager goes up there and cranks one out. Ties the game. Garcia, the game was tied, right? If he struck out, it goes on. But if Seager got out, we were down to our last out. Stadium erupted, the best atmosphere I've ever been in, getting chills just talking about it. And, it just an awesome experience.
That's really cool to hear about how you lived through that experience. That's really awesome. I was at Game 3 of the 2021 ALCS, so I have something a little bit to compare to it. When Kyle Schwarber hit that grand slam, I mean, Fenway went nuts. So I'm sure Game 1 of the World Series was even more crazy when Seager hit that home run. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for coming on today. This was really good. That'll make a great clip, by the way. That'll make a great clip for the socials, that take. So thank you so much, Daniel Goldberg, for coming on today. Go check out the Rangers websites, buy some merchandise. They're trying to market to you. So thank you so much, Daniel, for coming on, and we will see you all next week.
Yeah, thank you.